this weekend, and I thought it was fantastic, to be dead honest with you, man. Very, very good.
Well, thank you very much. The co-author, Adam Tependlin, he actually proposed it right prior to the pandemic. And at that point, I was a little bit hesitant. I was busy with some other stuff. And then it was kind of answered for me. You know, we couldn't get together because of COVID. And he had previously written a book about weird and exotic beers. So I thought, well, we need to get together at some pub, and he has to turn me on to some cool beers, and we'll talk about this idea to, like, do a memoir. And that couldn't happen after the pandemic, but I had a lot of free time to sit around and think about it. And then people taught me how to use Zoom. And so then the interview started. And that's pretty much it. He convinced me that he thought the time was right to tell the story for a number of reasons, you know, certainly about the band and about my relationship with everyone in the band. And just he thought it was interesting that half the band were sons of immigrants. And that was somewhat topical at that point.
I do like you brought that up early in the book, and I never knew this, but you and Hero met on the outskirts of Chicago. Was it Forest Park? Park Forest?
Park Forest.
And I like how you had said, like, you know, we're two Asian dudes, and that just is what it is, because where you grew up, no big deal. But when you guys did your road trip to make it to the West Coast, you would stop with, like, Montana or Idaho or something, and you got the sense that maybe not everybody was cool with Asians being in the country.
Yeah, I don't know if they thought, you know, we were in some, you know, just some smaller cities, certainly much smaller than Chicago, and it seemed less integrated. I mean, you'd see white guys and native guys, and maybe they thought we were native because we were tall and had long hair, were kind of dark, but you know, just weird stuff like they wouldn't answer your questions if you were getting gas or at a store, and they'd give you your change. You'd hold your hand out. They wouldn't put the change in your hand. They just kind of put it on the counter, and so you got to, like, pick it up and kind of scoot it in your hand. Just that kind of weird stuff they got, like that we kind of experienced also in Southern Illinois when we were younger. You know, just that. You know, they just look at you and they get quiet. They just put the coins down. It's like, okay, I guess we'll leave.
Yeah. Look, I'm a black dude, so when I walk by people's cars, I can hear them physically lock their doors. That's not even a joke. Just like, God, I need to just carjack someone just to make them right. Maybe that.
Was it just you and Hero driving across the country, Kim?
Yes, it was Hero and I. We had a third friend who moved out with us, but he wouldn't fit in Hero's Datsun B210 because we needed room for our guitars and our luggage and amps. So the third guy just happened to be a 6'2", blonde, Swedish American, and he took the bus out, and we met him down at the Greyhound station downtown in Seattle.
Oh, lovely.
Days later. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I thought was
if he was with us, though, at some of these stops.
Yeah. You touched on that in the book. Like, it'd have been great to have him to kind of, you know. But one of the things that, and I say this in all honesty, you were a very frustrating individual based on your success, but also so well maintained with how you did it. Because the first thing that really struck me was that in your book, you said, like, Hero kept bugging you, saying, "Come on, man, let's jam," and you were kind of like, "I'm not going to be a rock star. I'm not entertaining that thought." So you kept blowing Hero off for a while.
Yeah, it's mostly because I was really busy. I was at the University of Washington. I was working at the radio station KCMU, which is now KEXP. And I had a girlfriend, and I had a full-time job at the Daybreak Star Cultural Arts Center up there in Discovery Park. And I just didn't see time to go hang out and drink beer and do what I thought would be just kind of some boring jams on classic rock. And
what were you playing on your show when you were on the radio?
I was supposed to play the thing that was the stuff that was popular in college music then, which was everything from Culture Club and Human League to Devo, and I like Devo.
Yeah.
My shift was late at night from 2 a.m. until 5 a.m. So often when, the heavy rotation track would come up, I would just kind of log that I played it and then put on some Dead Kennedys.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you definitely reference punk a lot, but it blew my mind that Hero had to kind of coax you into starting this band that goes on to become Soundgarden. Because immediately I'm like, You've got to be kidding me. But that theme about you kind of stays true to the book. So there's a couple and look, I've been listening to Soundgarden since you guys put out Ultra Mega. All right. So, and as you follow the band, there's just so many things that the average fan you don't know. But I love the idea. You're like, all right, there's SST Records, and you guys are big punk heads. So you wanted just the opportunity to do that. You had Sub Pop going on. They need to get their finances straight. But then you also had A&M Records, right? And everyone that's in a band wants to get that big label contract. And I love that you guys were like, yeah, it's cool. Hang on. We're going to release these first. I just thought that is such a badass move, but it just speaks to the integrity of the band. That blew me away, man.
I think the move there was, the more we do for ourselves, the less they're going to try to manipulate or repackage or try to direct us in terms of marketing. It's like, look, here's the audience. We've built them in the U.S. and in Europe over these years, over these tours and these other releases. So what is it exactly you want to screw with that? Are you going to give us some Aquanet and spandex, or are you going to let us be who we are?
Yeah. Did you, Ken, who owned the van? The one that's, I guess it's in Cleveland now?
Eventually me. Hero's parents fronted him some money so we could invest in the van. And so it was kind of in Hero's name at first, and then he quit. So then it was in the management name, I think, maybe it might have been in Soundgarden's name, might have been our manager. At some point, it was transferred over to me, and it was mine. And then I sold it to EMP sometime, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, 25 years ago. And now it's in some museum. It's bounced around. I think it's in the Midwest, and I think it might be back in EMP's possession. I'm not sure.
Okay. What about that? The Spinal Tap, like that devil? Do you know? Do you have any idea whatever happened to that?
That was so cool. Apparently, from what I remember, I just wrote about this maybe half a year ago when Rob Reiner passed. But Spinal Tap's last show on their tour was Bumbershoot here, and they left that skull behind. I think they thought it was misplaced or taken, but they just forgot to load it and take it with them. And it ended up in the possession of some friends of Jeff Ament from Jeff from Pearl Jam. Yeah. At that time, it might have been Mother Love Bone at that time.
Oh wow!
But we were given a fill-in gig at what was then the Coliseum. I guess now it's Climate Pledge Arena.
Oh,
right. Time we got. I think it was a Lollapalooza gig. The subsequent year or a couple of years later, Jeff said, "Hey, man, I know where that Spinal Tap skull is, and it'd be great for you guys to use it for part of your set." He got a hold of it. He fixed it up. He painted it. Just kind of made it look fresh and new. They got some wires or winches, and I think it might have been while we were doing the song Beyond the Wheel, some guys backstage just kind of hoisted it up behind us, and they put some dry ice in there, and so the dry ice steam and smoke was coming out of the eyes. It was crude but excellent. The fact that it was crude and the skull was kind of spinning around and wouldn't stay still made it even more perfect.
One of the things you do touch on the book, and I love this, and I was saying this to the guys earlier, I'm like, beer always comes up, but it's never excessive. Like, I don't even know if you realize that when you read through the book, but like at some point, before I went on stage, we drink a couple beers. And after the show, we drink a couple beers, but it seems like the term couple of beers always pops up. Now, I am married, so a couple of beer means 6 or more. But on average, because that's if my wife, we had a couple of beers. I mean, that means I am pissed drunk. But in your case, you said just kind of ease the nerves before you went on stage. You'd take down a couple of beers. Like, how many are we actually talking?
Well, before I went on stage, it would be anything from 1 to 2. While on stage, I might have another couple, and certainly after the show is over, I'd cool down. But I guess what I was trying to illustrate was that there wasn't really there weren't any alcoholics or serious alcohol problems amongst the band members. There was certainly drinking, but it was certainly more rock and roll or collegiate in its nature. It was definitely a handful or more, but it wasn't people like waking up on beside a curb, in the
right.
neighbor town.
One thing I would argue this with anyone is, as far as bands go, in my opinion, Soundgarden and Red Hot Chili Peppers, as far as listening to the first albums, listening to the most recent, there's a definitive evolution to the sound. Because bands like AC/DC, you know exactly what you're getting. I love AC/DC, but I know what you're going to get. Rush, I know what I'm going to get. But with Soundgarden and Chili Peppers, both bands definitely matured. You can definitely hear songs change. So it's interesting to me because one of the things you said was when you got to, I believe it was Super Unknown, it was kind of the first time you guys would make demos for each other instead of jamming out the songs, and you weren't necessarily a fan of that process?
It was kind of starting, maybe a little bit around Louder Love, Bad Motorfinger, but it was really prevalent on Down to the Upside, which was the album that came out in 96. We were recording in 95, 96. So around that time, everyone had 4 tracks, including myself. I just didn't know how to use it properly. but everybody had their 4 tracks. They're just making little 4-track demos, and I just brought in some riffs that I committed to memory and would show them. So there's definitely a change in the dynamic and pre-production and the way we would share things, and that change was, it was accessible and convenient for everyone in the band. I think I might have found it a little bit less convenient for me.
How difficult?
There was definitely a change.
How difficult is it to work in reverse? So you've got Chris's vocals, and then you have to layer the music in, which is probably like a reverse process of how you
generally speaking
you construct a song. So as you're in the studio noodling all this crap, what's the tempo of this song? Is it a hard song? Is it a dreamy song?
Right.
Is it kind of weird to go through that process of, you could take those vocals and probably make 4 different musical arrangements around them? Is that a weird part of it?
In most of these cases, the music's already there, so the whole thing's demoed. The best performances are usually Chris's vocals, because he'd make sure that he put his best foot forward before sharing with us. That way, I think I mentioned in the book that he knew that it was more likely that a song idea that he had would be accepted if he framed it and performed it as best as he could. So he was very meticulous that way in his work in sharing it with us. So we had that. And there were kind of rough guitar ideas that either Matt had put down, or Ben, or Chris, or myself. And there were attempts at learning it, over the years, maybe 5-6 years ago. It was just kind of rough, like we played it in practice. So we have all the references. We know how the song should go. What we don't have are the suitable performances and sounds. And, we can dial those in while working with, a great producer. And by collaborating with ourselves, like what guitar sound do we want? How is the drum room, working for you, Matt? Things like that.
Okay. One of the things I enjoyed reading was you guys said you played one show and you were down on yourself because you'd messed up a couple notes here and there. Then you said Ben was laughing because he missed a couple of notes. But I love that you dropped in. Of course, Matt Cameron never F's up. Like, apparently, he was just like, the dude is just infallible in drums. Yeah. But one of the things that really resonated with me, too, there's a way that the public looks at anyone who has gotten popular in whatever genre of what they're doing, right? And a lot of times you always wonder, are you aware of it, right? So Tom Holland plays Spider-Man. He knows he's Spider-Man. He gets paid well. But is he aware of how cool the vibe is? And one of the things you would say that when Soundgarden went on the kind of impromptu hiatus, for lack of a better term, just 10 years, and your whole thing was, look, I just want to be the gatekeeper and protector of the music and the legacy and all that kind of thing. And when the idea of a reunion came up, I guess you had said, like, you guys played your first show together somewhere, and you just didn't realize that in those 10 years that you had not been playing with them, that Soundgarden had become legendary and even bigger than you guys were before you stopped.
That was a Nude Dragon show.
Yeah. I wonder if that was the show that we played with Tom Morello and brother Wayne Kramer at the Crocodile.
I think that's the one you referenced.
We had Tad singing for us, and we call it Tad Garden.
Yeah.
We're pretty surprised. I mean, they kind of called out the guys in the band, and there's like this amazing cheer from the audience, and there's a lot of guests on that bill. Tom Morello and Boots Riley, and I remember Wayne Kramer just turned around and looked at us and looked at me, and he just raised his eyebrows like, wow. And I think there were some other shows where I guested or Matt guested with some friends of ours, like coming out and playing with Alice in Chains, maybe the Pearl Jam guys, and yeah, it was a surprise. Like I had no idea
that you were awesome.
Again, we still have this kegerator up here. You know, you can come and join us in studio.
This is true.
Hero came in.
Last time we saw you,
come on.
You were talking about beer last time we physically saw you.
We got a kegerator still.